You do not have to hold back your fire in your relationship. If you do, if you feel like you do, you likely received messages growing up around anger being unsafe. Maybe you experienced in your household anger being a destructive force. And so you internalize the message that you should not express anger and you don't want to be around angry people. And there's a difference between learning how to self-regulate so that you're not dumping your crap all over the people who are closest to you and suppressing something you actually feel that needs to be expressed. So we're going to talk today about the healthy expression of anger in relationship and what some of the barriers might be to that. My name is Maria Elizabeth Molly, and I'm a relationship alchemist and artist. And I coach people to take the common elements of life and relationship and craft it into something beautiful and nourishing and fulfilling and whole, where they get to be fully expressed and in their power, in their relationships, and in the world. So today we're going to talk about anger and the healthy expression of it. And there tends to be a lot of barriers to it. For example, in my family of origin, my mother tended to withhold and stonewall and withdraw when she was angry. And my father tended to suppress his anger, but then come with like passive aggressive, critical, what do you call it? Nitpicky kind of comments. And so I didn't have a lot of experience around the healthy expression of anger in such a way that it would just get expressed and be done and move on. It tended to kind of linger and fester and then operate, and infect the relationships from behind the scenes. So that was my experience growing up. So it took me a while to get comfortable with my own anger. I tended to stuff down my anger, and then it would come out in these little covert kind of irritated ways. I'd feel irritable all the time, or I would make a snarky comment or criticism, something like that. And in my marriage, when I was married, my ex-husband his family, they didn't express anger a lot. So he didn't have a lot of facility with the expression of his own anger. So he tended to also kind of do passive aggressive needling kind of things, and was intimidated or, couldn't really, didn't have bandwidth for the expression of my anger either. So again, I tended to suppress it and then kind of pick at him. And then I started dating someone after I was divorced who loved my fire and my expression of anger. So if I started to, get hopped up over something, he would relax. He was Costa Rican, and he would be like, "Oh my God, I love it when you share your fire," or "I love it when you go full Latina on me," because I'm white and Latina both. And so, he would be like, "I love it when you go full Latina." It was the first time in my life that I was in relationship with someone who invited my full expression, who invited my passion and my fire out, and was not intimidated if I got, loud. And my current partner, who I've been with over 5 years now, is similar. He loves my fire, and he tells me when it doesn't feel good, when I'm expressing it in a way that isn't clean and clear. And so this is the piece I want to talk about next, is how do you have your anger and express your anger in a clean and clear way so that what's landing with the other person is potent, quick, and done, as opposed to being this kind of sticky, often confusing communication that has a lot of historical charge on it. And what I mean by historical charge is something like, resentment over the first 15 times you didn't say something about the thing, and then now you say the thing and you're so pissed about it because there's 15 times backed up in you when you didn't say it. So, they forgot to take out the trash one time, and you're just like, pow, with the big anger. And they're like, what happened? Because they don't understand why there's so much charge about this seemingly small thing. But what you have neglected to mention is that there were 15 times before that you didn't say anything about it. This is the kind of thing I'm talking about. To avoid that, because then when you lob that big charge at them, they're going to go into self-defense. They're going to not be able to hear what you have to say. They're going to withdraw. They're going to fight back, so maybe they start yelling back at you. It just sets up all sorts of dynamics you don't really want to have. So in order to not do that, I suggest first, when anger happens, if you are a person who either tends to rage without self-reflecting at all on why you're angry and what actually got touched, or if you're a person who tends to suppress and not have permission for the healthy expression of your anger, depending on which way you go, the first step is similar between both of them. Noticing that you're angry, and second, asking yourself, well, what's underneath? What got touched? Do I feel hurt? Do I feel unseen? Do I feel unheard? Do I feel frustrated because something I keep asking for is just not happening? So what is the thing that's happening underneath the initial expression or experience of anger inside? And then once you know what that is, that's the thing you bring to your partner. You ask for the thing you want. You name that you haven't felt seen or heard. You make the request for the thing that hasn't happened. And depending on what the communication is, you choose the level of fire that feels appropriate to the situation. Now, what I'm going to talk about something with my partner when we first started making room for the healthy expression of his anger in our relationship, because he didn't have a lot of safety around that. As a Black man in America, there's not a lot of safety to permit to express your anger. And so he learned at a young age to stuff it down in order to stay safe. But what would happen is he would start to go numb. He'd feel angry about something and then not express it. This is now as an adult with me. He would feel angry about something, not express it, and then he would start to feel numb and he couldn't feel anything. So we deliberately, for a while, we set up a deliberate, what we call a container or a research scenario to practice expressing his anger. And when it first came out, it would come out kind of messy and unclean because he just didn't have facility with how to express it. And it's similar, for example, I just went back to New York, to my apartment in New York, where I haven't been in 8 months. And when I opened the faucet to draw a bath, the water came out brown. And that's what happens when you don't run a faucet for a while, right? So when you first start trying an expression of an emotion that you haven't expressed in a long time, that you've suppressed for a long time, it's like rusty water. It comes out dirty and messy and doesn't feel good. Like, I didn't want to take a bath in that. So I ran the water for a while until it ran clean, and then I could take a bath. So it's similarly, when you're working on expressing something that you've been historically not expressing, there's a period of time where it's going to come out like rusty water, and you just got to get through that together. And this is something that you deliberately communicate about with your partner, right? So you say, hey, I want to work on expressing my anger closer to real time, because I notice I have a habit of stuffing it down and then doing kind of little passive aggressive digs at you because I didn't express it when it actually happened. So I want to practice expressing it in real time. Can we do that together? And you get your partner's buy-in, you get their agreement to research, to play with this particular thing until the water runs clear. Now, if you're someone who tends to be ragey without self-examination about what it really is about, then you could play with the opposite container, right? I want to play with holding my anger for a moment when I feel it, so that I get more comfortable with holding sensation in my body, with feeling a lot of emotion and not acting it, not discharging it right away, so that I can get more comfortable with sitting in discomfort and also ask myself what's happening underneath and what's being touched, and learn to ask for the thing I actually need instead of engaging in this behavior that drives you away. Would you be open to playing with that with me? And what that looks like for the partner is reflecting back how it feels when you express. Does it land well? or do they want to get defensive? Or if you're, holding your sensation in a place where you would normally discharge it too quickly without having sort of figured out what it's about, then, they can name what the difference feels like. For example, like, oh yeah, when you actually asked me for the thing that you need and wanted, that felt so much better to me, right? So you ask your partner to give you feedback on the thing that you're trying, so that together, like lab partners in the lab of your relationship, you can learn to have a fuller expression of who you are, how you are in the moment, especially if what you're expressing is what you want and need, especially if you've done that step to ask yourself, what got hit? Why am I upset? And what do I want and need? And I'm going to ask for that, instead of just, dumping your charge all over your partner, which doesn't tend to work well. Because in that case, you tend to go into blame, you tend to not take responsibility, they tend to get defensive, they don't want to be in the room with you, it creates disconnection. Now, what I'm talking about is when you have a healthy relationship to your anger and ability to feel what it's about and ask for the thing you actually want, that the anger was pointing you toward. This is a practice that actually brings you closer together. And in this way, your relationship becomes this amazing practice ground and playground for full self-expression for both people, with the understanding that you're deliberately doing that there's safety within this container, this research container that you've set up, so that you each can get better at the thing you want to get better at, whatever that thing is. Today, we're talking about anger, but it could be anything. So I want to talk a little bit about how I view relationships as this incredible research and supportive training ground for your full self-expression. Because this is not, as you know, typically how relationships are set up. There's kind of, I think, a lot of times an unspoken agreement. Sometimes it's spoken, but more often it's unspoken, to like, I'm not going to trigger your shit and you don't trigger mine, and we'll just exist comfortably together. But it's kind of this bland, like, meh space. And here's the thing. You can't selectively numb or suppress one thing and have everything else be on. So you can't selectively suppress or dim down your passion and your anger and expect your sex to be on. You can't suppress or dim down your grief and expect your joy and fulfillment to be on. So relationship, because of its nature, the way it touches the deepest parts of us, the tender places that often we would rather not have to feel or show, precisely because relationship is the place where that shit gets triggered the most, it's an incredible opportunity for you to gain more capacity and more facility with your own interior in the presence of someone who loves you, and where you can support one another in that fuller self-expression. And let me tell you, when your relationship becomes a safer ground for your full expression, that does wonders for you in your work. That does wonders for you in showing up in your power wherever you go in the world. No matter if you are, living in a place that doesn't necessarily, or working in a place that doesn't necessarily welcome your full expression, you still can find more freedom within it, so that you don't have to live a soul-crushing existence every day. Because you don't get to be yourself anywhere. At least if you get to be yourself in your relationship. And when I say yourself, I don't just mean your unmediated, unexamined, dumping, blaming charge, because I maintain that that's not you. That's the personality or the inherited crap you learned from your family. But who you are underneath that has a lot more range and a lot more possibility for expression. Once you start learning how to be with discomfort in the way I'm talking about, and actually ask for the thing you really want and need, instead of either dumping the charge of your discomfort on the person unexamined, or suppressing it and trying to work it out and be just totally calm and rational all the time. And because all of that holding and dimming and suppressing and shrinking, it's not good for the relationship. It actually has the relationship start to die a little bit. Uh, so that is what I wanted to share today. Again, my name is Marie Elizabeth Molly. I'm a relationship alchemist and artist who helps you craft relationships that support your growth, that really are an expression of who you are at your core, where your beauty and strength and power and brilliance get to shine through, instead of staying stuck at the level of trying to avoid the landmines of your childhood wounding. It gets to such a playful place when you get to have full expression in your relationship. That's when you're cooking, on all four burners. So I love to facilitate that kind of heat and fun and expression in relationship, and where you can really trust yourself and your partner to receive one another and to communicate with one another from love and care and tenderness and vulnerability and fullness and anger too. It's all has its place. So stick around, watch more videos. I regularly share tips on relationship. If you have any questions or you want me to share on a particular topic, please pop a comment down below. I would love to hear how this landed with you, and I look forward to seeing you next time. We're made of love. Now let's be about freeing it. Thank you.